overall. Yeah. But good job done. Hi. So, you here for the job offer? I'm looking for another mechanic. We're always trying to hire, the most qualified people to work on our cars. Because, we do have the greatest respect for them. I just finished a big job on this model. 2014 Chevrolet Sonic. Needed a lot of work. Changed the alternator, and changed the thermostat, radiator, goes on and on. So, anyways, are you qualified? Are you ready to get into some grease? Oh, well, what I'll do then is I'm going to teach you, I'll give you a quick guide on how cars work so that you can pick up quick. Seeing probably you don't have any experience. So we'll go through like the systems and basically how they run and what they do. I am very qualified in the field, I would say. Yeah, I've been doing this for a long time. Yeah, it's not my first jacuzzi. No. So we'll start off on a car or any combustible engine model, whatever. There's two things that you need the most. You need fuel, and you need a spark, to give it that power that it needs. So, you have the engine. Then, for the fuel, you have the fuel tank, or the gas tank, if you want. You have gas lines going from the gas tank to the engine, or noticeably to the carburetor. Now, in the gas tank, you have a fuel pump. The fuel pump is needed to push the fuel to the carburetor. It's that simple. Just pushes the fuel from the lines to the carburetor. Now, the carburetor, what that does is it's gonna, the newer model of cars today have injectors. So what they do is they inject the fuel into the pistons, whether it be a 4-cylinder, an 8-cylinder, or even a 12-cylinder. That way, each piston gets the fuel. So once the fuel pump pushes the fuel to the carburetor or the injectors, it is then separated and sprayed into each piston at a specific time. Yes, the injectors are going to spray the fuel into the piston, and they each have their role. And this is thanks to the timing. It is very important that a car has the proper timing so that everything doesn't scramble up, if you want. And this is with the timing chain or timing belt, which controls the camshaft. Now the camshaft has a very important role. It's what's going to activate the valves, which are going to let the fuel in to the pistons. As it turns, the valves are going to open at a specific time through connecting rods. Well, actually push rods. With the valve springs, they open and close. Thank you to the timing belt and timing chain. Now, once the fuel has been timed, it's going to be put into the cylinders, the pistons, which are connected with the connecting rods to the crankshaft, which actually turns the whole motor. Because once the fuel ignites, and that happens from the spark. Most of the older cars had these distributor caps, which also had a rotor and would distribute the sparks to the specific spark plug, which each cylinder has a spark plug to ignite the fuel at a specific time. Thanks again to the distributor and the timing chain. Now that we have spark and we have fuel, as the motor starts when you turn the key, this activates the starter. Yes, the starter. And it has a good name because it does what its name tells it to do. The starter. As the engine cranks and turns from the starter and the fuel ignites, it's going to push the pistons down. And that is where you're going to get your power on the down cycle. Yes. They will push down. But now we have a problem. We have created exhaust and fumes. Where will they go? Well, once the power has been created and the pistons are on their way down, of course, from the crankshaft, they will turn around and start their way back up. Yes, to the compression cycle. But this also will allow the gas to escape towards the muffler. Because now we've had our first cycle of power. The exhaust has to be eliminated, and which will be pushed out again through the valves into the exhaust ports and out through the manifold, out to the catalytic converter, through the muffler, and out the tailpipe. And then the cycle repeats itself over and over again and again and again, which makes the engine purr like a kitten. Yes, it's perfectly smooth. Now we have the power and we have the engine running. So there's also a multitude of other functions that we have, because on most of all the cars today, like this baby, there's a lot of electronics. Yes. There's a lot of things that make the timing happen. You almost need a schematic, to show exactly how everything runs and how it works. But this is just the basics. Now that we have the motor running, we're generating heat, and it can get very hot, very serious, very hot. So we have to cool this motor down. And how is this done? With coolant, radiator, and antifreeze. The radiator is the cooling device. So we have the hoses that run to the radiator from the motor. But to the motor, as the hose leaves the motor, it runs through a water pump. Yes. And the water pump is what circulates the antifreeze through the radiator. Then it comes out the radiator, circulates into the thermostat, which regulates the temperature. Yes. And the flow. Then it goes back into the motor, and the cycle continues again. And this is how we keep the motor nice and cool. But also, sometimes we need to be cool. And that's why we have these air conditioning systems. These systems are a little bit complex. But basically, it runs like a freezer, or a fridge if you want. There's the freon, or the gas, that is in the system. But today it's green. Yes, the gas is green for the environment, if you want. And this is pushed by a compressor, which then is pushed through a system, like a fridge. It has its own radiator. And as it compresses, it's going to cool down. And this passes through a system into your car, where you can have air conditioning. Yes. But what I didn't mention also before, when it gets cold and you want heat in the car, inside the car, where you don't even see it, there is a little radiator. And this, from the cooling system of the car and the heat that is generated once the motor starts, goes through the hoses, and then the heat goes through the little radiator in the car, which generates heat with a little fan and a blower, which also gives you the cooling and the heat for the winter and the summer. And that's basically how that works in a car. But also multiple factors also, like I said, in the electronics. You have car radio system, you have all like a computer with the sensors and everything, which tells you if the car is running smooth or if there's a problem. Like with all the lights on the dashboard, you definitely don't want to see that little light with the motor. Or when it says check engine, the check engine light. We definitely don't want to see that. No, that's not good. No. So, now that I've explained the basics of the motor, the cooling, the fuel, all that, but you also have, like, but it's very important, is the energy, the charging system. What gives the power necessary to work those electronics. And that's thanks to a battery. You have a car battery, a 12 volt DC car battery. And that gives all the necessary power for the fans, for the electronics, for the fuel pump, everything needed to run the car. And that comes from an alternator. An alternator is like a generator. It generates electricity, yes, which is then sent to these power units, which regulate the energy and send it to the battery. And the alternator turns with a strap that goes around it goes through the compressor for the air conditioner, it goes around the water pump, it goes around the crankshaft, it goes around the whole car, the tensioner, the whole system is related to that one strap, a serpentine strap they call it, which keeps everything turning and running smooth. Because internally, like I said, inside the car, there's another strap for the crankshaft and the camshaft, which is the timing belt. Or it could be a timing chain. Yes. You can take your pick depending on the model of the car. So that's also what is used to keep the car timed in place. If that breaks, we have a serious motor problem. Yes, we don't want that to happen. No. Now that we've got our motor, we've got our power, we've got our electricity, the car's running, you're cruising down the highway, but then you come to a stop sign. How are you going to stop? Thanks to the brake system. Yes, the car needs brakes to be able to stop at lights and at stop signs. Basically, wherever you have to stop. And this works from the braking system, like I mentioned. The braking system is stipulated as so. Each wheel has a disc. Now this disc turns with the tires, the wheels. And for enable the braking system to lock or slow down the car, the discs have pads on each side of a disc, which open and close. Open and close. Thanks to a caliper. A caliper is a piston system which can compress the pads on the disc and then release them. Press them, release them. And how that works. The calipers work from oil. There's these oil lines that run to the calipers that are pressurized from the master cylinder. So what happens is when you press on that brake pedal inside the car, you're going to put pressure, which is going to be sent to to the master cylinder where the oil is on the car. Now this oil is pressurized, very highly pressurized, and it is sent through the lines to the calipers for each wheel, which, like I said, will push on the pads, which push on the discs, allowing the car to slow down or stop. See, basics are pretty simple, and all cars basically run the same way, except for the electric ones. Yes, that's a whole different system. Yeah, and they're coming more and more out with these ones, the electric ones. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about fuel systems. Now, if you want to talk seriously about the cars, things you're going to really have to learn and know is you have these blinkers. They're used for turning. They're called turn signals. Yes. So many people today drive their cars and do not use their blinkers. That is very dangerous because you're not letting other people know when you're going to be turning either right or left. And that's confusing for other drivers. So we have to make sure that the blinkers are working and to tell everyone to use them. But on a car, you also have the lights. See? The lights, which are very important, as every car needs lights. Because when it gets dark, you want to be able to see where you're driving. So, and some people will come in and they will ask you to change their blinker fluid from what they have seen on the internet. That is not true. It does not exist. So don't try and tell people that you'll be changing their blinker fluid. It's not possible. It could be done though. Yes, I've taken some time to evaluate that theory, and I know it could be done. But right now I'm working on a whole different system. Yeah, so. And you could have blinker fluid added to the lights at the same time if you wanted to, which would amplify the light capacity and make it much clearer. But we're not talking about that right now. That too is something that's very important, like the brake lights in the back. It's very important to have brake lights. Don't want people ramming into the back of your car. So we make sure that all of that works perfectly, that all the systems are up and running and that, everything is in good quality and good shape. That's why, with my theories, I've been testing, and I've tested something on this car too at the same time, but also I changed the sound system. I changed the sound system in the amplifier because I find when you have a good stereo system, the car runs much better. Especially when it's got that little, boom, 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 boom. I've timed the stereo to the motor. I was able to do that through the electronics. So every time the sound system, if you choose the right tune, the right music, that's, timed with your car will be 80 to 90% more fuel efficient on the running. So I've done that to the car, and I can do it to other people's cars too. But also, here, all our parts are certified. And they come from the Acme company. Yes. And the president himself, Wile E. Coyote, signs each and every package. They are guaranteed. So you don't have to worry about parts. And we get them at a great price, and the delivery is so fast. It's unbelievable. I can't even explain how fast it is. But if you're going to come and work for me, I'm also going to show you some of my ideas that I've been thinking of. Because I know now, in a lot of cars, with the electronics, and the electronic cars, what they're coming out with, like for the braking systems and that, like I explained. But now, like on the electric cars, they have these braking systems that are like generators, and they help to brake the car. But they also send electricity back to the batteries. So I said to myself, why can't I do it with this car, like any car, but with a compressor system? I thought that would be a good idea. So I'm working on a system right now that when the wheels are going to turn, okay, they're going to have these compressors, but these high capacity compressors, which are going to push air into tanks, like instead of a gas tank. So it's going to put pressure to the tanks, which in basis, the air flow will be sent to the pistons, which will help generate more power, if you want, to the car. It's like a hybrid, if you want, sort of car system that I'm working on. Oh, I have so many other ideas too, Like I was saying, my sound system, technology, and everything else that I can, put together, that I can help a car function. Like even for the cooling system, I was thinking of adding liquid nitrogen to the coolant, which would give it that little extra coolant boost for on those like desert hot days. You probably would want something like that for sure. I was thinking of that. Instead of them using that nitrous oxide to give it that boost of power, I would put liquid nitrogen to keep it cooler. Oh, you can still use the nitrous oxide if you want, especially when you're racing, but that's a whole different system too at the same time. And then of course, on a car also you have accessories. And the more accessories you have, the more benefits you have in a car. Like of course, You're going to need the windshield washers. For sure, the windshield wipers. You have a reservoir that holds the liquid for the windshield wipers that squirts out from a little pump in the reservoir with the liquid. And when the wipers go back and forth, they clean your windshield. Yeah. Some of the older models also had them on the back windshield. Yeah. The back window too at the same time. And I've seen some models that even have the little squirty thing for the headlights. Yeah, some of the more expensive cars. Yeah, I've seen that. So, and you have nowadays, you have all those, onboard GPS controls and onboard monitoring systems and all that stuff. You got satellite radio and for your cell phone, Wi-Fi and all that on the cars today. So I don't like all those new technology systems too much, And I'm not really crazy about these new electric cars either. I like getting my hands dirty and working on a car with the grease and all the smell of the oil and the gas and all that. It brings me back so many fond memories of my old days. And, the cars I used to repair back then, some of the classics. Oh, it was such a great time. But today, the new cars, they smell too new, and they're too clean. Everything's got to be clean. You got to wear these fancy rubber gloves, and, a special suit and the whole thing. And I'm not for that. No, it's not my thing. I prefer the old models. I'm going to teach you all about that. We'll go through step by step. And I'll show you and explain you every little detail. Show you every little filter. The air filters, and oil filters, and gas filters, and filters here, filters there. I'll show you all that. And I'll even show you, like, the fuse box. In case something happens, the fuse blows. I'll show you how to take care of that, and how to change the light bulbs, and basically we'll run through the wiring, and the diagrams and all that. Then I'll show you the tests necessary that you have to do to connect the computer system to the car for diagnostics. Yeah. I'll show you all of that. So, are you ready to start the job? Yeah. Well, if you want to give it some thought, take your time, give it some thought, and think about, like, wanting to join Ray's auto repair shop, where everything is just fine and dandy and qualified, because these days you have to take care, because we love you and be catching you on our next video adventure. Who knows, maybe you'll become working for me at the garage. Oh, bye for now. Bye. Yeah, the car. The car. I really put a lot of work into that car. Yeah.